Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Flow. This is a podcast where we aim to learn and spread awareness of the lethal effects of period poverty, which is a public health crisis that affects hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Follow along on our journey as we go with the flow.
So today's guest, we have Alexandra Alondra Alvarez, President of National Premedical Student Division. She's part of American Medical Women's Association, otherwise known as AMWA. And you're an alumni of University of California, Berkeley, right? So.
Hi everyone. So thank you so much for having me. Samantha so gracefully introduced me. My name is Alexandra Alvarez, and I am a recent graduate from the University of California, Berkeley. I majored in molecular and cell biology and minored in toxicology. But aside from that science aspect of my life, I am very passionate about period poverty, and so I'm really excited to be here today.
What sparked your interest and made you want to get into period poverty?
Yeah, so honestly, I believe it was 2017. That was my freshman year in college. I met my best friends on my floor at UC Berkeley. And so one day we were just in my dorm room, and one of my best friends came across a video regarding period poverty. It was sort of raising awareness on just how, more so on a global aspect, it was raising awareness on how, due to menstruation and people who are experiencing period poverty, and because they don't have the proper resources and accessibility to menstrual products, they end up missing out on school, or they end up missing out on just opportunities that help them excel in the workplace or in school. And so I honestly am kind of embarrassed to say that before that I was a little bit naive as to what period poverty was, and I honestly didn't really think that it was an issue. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school growing up, and so there the topic of menstruation wasn't really something that was taboo because it was all girls or all menstruators around me. And so we were so open with it. During lunchtime, people would say, "Hey, does anyone have a pad?" like out loud in the courtyard, and it was really no big deal. And so when I got to college, I didn't realize how much of an issue it actually was. And I think it was because I was sort of naive and in this little bubble in high school. And so after seeing that video, we decided to start an organization on our UC Berkeley campus because we recognized that there was a need not only globally, but also within our community. And I guess, the short answer is that it was a Facebook video and talking to my best friends that sort of sparked my interest. But the more I learned about it, the more I realized that this is something that I'm really passionate about. And so we sort of put forth all of our work and energy towards creating an organization called Generation Flo at UC Berkeley.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Generation Flo?
Yeah, of course. So Generation Flo is, like I said, just a campus-based organization that started in 2017. And the mission of Generation Flo, we started off as Ladies for Change. Actually, that was our original name, LFC. So a lot of our original branding work, if you were to look it up, is probably under Ladies for Change /LFC. But in 2020, we made the change to Generation Flo just to be more inclusive of menstruators everywhere. And so the mission is to raise awareness on issues surrounding menstruation, as well as ending the stigma on menstruation. And so whether those issues be the pink tax, period poverty, lack of accessibility on college campuses or globally, and really just any issues that surround menstruation in our current society, that is the mission. And so we usually still do that work through raising awareness by, social media campaigns in this COVID era, because that's all we really can do in a virtual world these days. And also raising funds or raising donations through products to donate in our community. And so a lot of our work was either doing product drives on campus or fundraising, or just really raising awareness on campus by, tabling on what we call Sprout Plaza, which is our kind of huge courtyard at UC Berkeley. And so we would just do campaigns there or through social media or, hosting a menstrual rights symposium, whatever it may be, whatever we could do to get the word out there to educate people. I would say our three main avenues were education, fundraising, and donations. And so that's a little bit about what we do. It is kind of a baby organization. 2017 was sort of the spring of 2017, so practically 2018, and we're just at the start of 2021. And so it is a baby organization. It is mine and my best friend's baby, but that's a little bit about what we do.
Love that name, by the way, Generation Flow.
Honestly, great coincidence. When I heard the name of the podcast,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, great minds think alike.
Do you
So-
also tell people to go with the flow?
Yes, we do. That was actually one of our alternate names when we were, I think it was around, very beginning of January 2020. We were like, okay, we need to change the name because we just don't want to give off an image that we're only serving a certain demographic. And so when we had a list of names, and one of them was Go with the Flow, another one was Flow, another one was Generation Flow, and we ended up going with Generation Flow. But we were like, we could just use merch and like say Go with the Flow, or just use that tagline. So it's kind of a funny coincidence that this is the podcast name.
We've joked about that before. Like, oh, what if we had merch? Imagine just like a shirt that said, Go with the flow.
Yeah, and you know what? The potential is there. The options are limitless. Like, I think it's a cute slogan.
So earlier you kind of mentioned something about the pink tax.
Mhm.
For listeners who don't really know what that is or aren't really aware, would you mind like kind of explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, so the pink tax actually intertwines quite heavily with period poverty because, even if a person can afford menstrual products, the annual and lifetime cost of buying taxed products is a burden on like any menstruator in any of our states. I believe 35 currently. Last time I checked, 35 out of the 50 states still tax menstrual products. And so the pink tax refers to this extra amount of money that is charged on items that are deemed as feminine. And so it could be everyday objects such as, shampoo and conditioner, deodorant, shaving razors, and menstrual products. And so I would say it is like an umbrella term in which period poverty kind of, like I said, overlaps with it because menstrual products fall under the pink tax. What we call the pink tax is, I just kind of gave a general definition, but an example that I could use at the top of my head is that if you're walking in the aisles of your drugstore and you're trying to buy, let's say, a deodorant or a razor that is the same really as a generic brand, if it is packaged or in the woman's aisle for whatever reason, because it's packaged in pink or purple or whatever else is deemed as feminine, then it will be priced heavier than a generic non-brand deodorant, even if it's the same product, or even if it's a product that is targeted for males. That deodorant that is targeted towards our demographic will be taxed just a little bit higher just because it's feminine. So that's why it's called the pink tax. And then under that, we also refer to the luxury tax, which is what we talk about in specifics to menstrual products. And so menstrual products are deemed as luxury items, like I said, in about 35 out of the 50 states in the United States. And so because they're deemed as luxury items, they are taxed, whereas items such as Viagra are not taxed. And so it really is an issue because people, like I said, even if a person can afford menstrual products or they have the financial means to afford menstrual products, whatever it may be, whether it's menstrual cups, pads, tampons, this extra tax does add up every year. And then we like throw into play the people who are experiencing period poverty, who do not have the means to buy these products monthly. This extra tax is just another burden that they have to come across. And so, we usually always, I'm sure you have all had people on this podcast and, have heard that this constant theme of, like menstrual products are not luxury items, they're a necessity. And so if things like toilet paper, which are a necessity, are free, then so should menstrual products because it is a normal, healthy bodily function. And it's something that, half the population deals with. And so it is truly unfortunate that it's deemed as a luxury item and falls under this pink tax. But I hope that answered your question a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel like the luxury tax is kind of like almost like cornering like people in like a vulnerable spot because think about it, if you need like to go buy pads, tampons, whatever, and it's already kind of like just priced kind of expensive just like as is, like a box of tampons is like $10 or something. Like now on top of that, there's people who really think that they should tax you because it's like some kind of luxury, like as if anyone asked to get a
Yeah,
period, as if
exactly.
anybody enjoys or like wished it upon themselves. Like, no,
Exactly.
like it's miserable, and the fact that you have to like, because but like you're still gonna buy it, like you're gonna pay for it because you
Because we have to.
so it's like, well, shoot, they won.
Hmm.
Like,
Exactly.
I'm not just gonna like, okay, yeah, it sucks that like I feel like I literally have to pay like, I don't know, like what, like $12 or something for like my pads or tampons, but like I gotta do it, like I need it. So
Yeah, exactly. And it does it it is an unfortunate situation, and I think that it does appeal to a certain it does appeal to a certain population, because I think that when these products are taxed or priced at a certain price point, it kind of just is assumed that everyone is able to afford these. But what some people don't actually know or don't realize sometimes is also that this label as a luxury tax rather than as a necessity actually like affects menstruators even further, because of this luxury tax. Food stamps don't actually cover the price of pads or tampons or really menstrual products, and so people who rely on food stamps to get a lot of their basic necessity hygienic products like toilet paper or just whatever it may be for their body can't include menstrual products under this, because of that luxury tax. So it's honestly kind of like a sick money making game, but it is unfortunate. And I think a lot of the work that a lot of great people are doing through their organizations and advocating for menstruators everywhere, really trying to raise awareness on this and kind of make people aware that, like, hey, this is a necessity and food stamps don't even cover it. So even if you wanted to keep the tax, at least we should be able to provide menstrual products for those who are most vulnerable or who really do need it. And I think that there is so much more that we need to do in this area of work, but we have gone a huge way, a long way of kind of raising awareness, and it is a slow battle, but I'm like so glad that we're talking about this even now.
yeah, the first step is just educating people, spreading awareness on it. Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you, so one of our favorite things about doing this podcast, I think, is just getting different people's perspectives. A lot of the people who, or well, some of the people who we've interviewed have been kind of like younger, like college age, and like you're like fresh out of college, right? Like, and so, uh,
Remind me.
years in high school, and so it's kind of cool to like talk to people who are sort of around our age generation.
Mhm.
And we also really enjoy talking. Like so far, everyone we've talked to has been like female, and so
Mhm.
talking to, like women of color is also a really cool thing, giving because it's like you gotta have like a platform. And I wanted to ask you if in your work have you kind of seen that like maybe people of color are the ones kind of suffering the most from period poverty?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually glad you asked that. And I think that that is such an important topic to highlight, because absolutely people of color and, menstruators of color are the ones who are hit by period poverty even more. Whether, so many factors come into play as to why they are hit the most, but the data is there. If you were to look up any sort of statistical numbers, you would find that people of color are affected more by period poverty than people like non-people of color, and it is truly unfortunate. And I think that it is something that we need to talk about and really raise awareness about, and that when we think about period poverty and how we really want to work towards bettering the issue, we need to keep in mind those populations, because sometimes they are left out, and it is really sad. And I think that that's something that as a college student, or when I was in college, even though it really wasn't that long ago, but it seems like it was long ago. When we were students, my best friends and I, and honestly all of our team, we were people of color. And so one of the things that we really tried to target and we really tried to like reinforce is this idea of like really making sure that we were keeping in mind our most vulnerable populations and keeping in mind these like people who were hit the hardest, and not only trying to alleviate period poverty wherever we can, but also trying to like raise awareness on like the root of the issue. So it's one thing to donate products, that's amazing and that is needed, and but at the same time it's kind of like putting, someone once told me it was kind of like putting a band-aid over a wound rather than like really trying to get to the root issue and the root cause. And that is that at the basic level of our society, people of color are unfortunately just always left out. And so we really do try to raise awareness, and really whenever we were educating or donating products to whoever it was, like we really made it a goal to try and keep in mind like people of color who were affected, because like I said, the data is there, it shows it, and there's a lot of different factors that come into play as to why people of color are affected more by period poverty. But it's the sad reality. And so the short answer to your question is like, yes, I have seen that people of color are affected more, but not only people of color. I also think it's important to highlight, our communities such as the trans community, who are also very much affected by period poverty, and just not even period poverty, but also when we talk about menstruation, the language surrounding menstruation is something that sometimes many of us don't even think about it. Some of us who are just working on the field, like we are so inclined to say that, to not even say, but to think that menstruation is a feminine issue or something that only women deal with. But that is so far beyond the truth. Not only women menstruate, and it's just really important that when we talk about menstruation and period poverty, we keep in mind, like I said, people of color who are deeply affected by it, but also that we make sure not to leave people behind and not to leave communities out of the conversation. And so another sad reality is that the trans community is sometimes left out when we talk about menstruation and period poverty. And so I guess in my 4 or 5 years of working and learning, I'm still learning myself, and I'm still trying to find out how I can help. For so many years, 4 years, I was working at this like grassroots level as a student on a college campus with the university backing. And so now that I'm kind of like fresh out of college in this COVID era, I'm like, okay, how can I help in my own community without a university backing anymore? And so I think that it's, kind of a lifelong learning process of figuring out how I can help in whatever situation I'm in. And I think it's just important that it doesn't matter at whatever stage you're at, whether you're middle school, high school, college, an adult, that we keep in mind who is most affected by period poverty, and keep in mind to really like make sure that we're being inclusive when talking about it and coming up with solutions and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that like if you're someone who menstruates, you're in a way like a minority, like 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 if you're a woman, if you're like transgender, let's say you're like a woman of color or something, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and just that alone, like that, and then don't even like count the menstruation part right now. Like you're a minority in this society, and it can be really hard to get respect and get like, like get taken seriously. And as now you want to talk about period poverty, a
Yeah,
subject,
it's like you want to add on to it.
yeah,
We
a
kind of
subject that
get
people
into this.
cringe at and like think
Yeah,
that's like ew, like why would you talk about that, like because like it, well, because it's real, but also it's just like I don't know, like I think that like if you're like, for example, like yourself, you're a woman of color, have you found it hard to like get people to take you seriously and get people's respect
oh,
on
yeah,
period poverty?
yeah. I mean, I think in general, any woman, I would say, kind of can relate to having to try just a little harder just to be, taken as seriously. And so, um, like I said, I think I was sort of naive up until I got to college on issues that were deep, like affecting society and people of color, because Of my high school and like the background that I came from. So, at an all-girls school, everything that I saw, any leadership position that I saw was given to a female identifying student. And so like in my head, I was like, well, I'm seeing like, our high school motto was all of which woman is capable. And so when I was in high school, I was like, well, yeah, we can do anything, because everyone who I was around, I was like, yeah, look at this person getting this leadership position. Look at this person going on and doing that. Like, they're all females. And so to me, it wasn't an issue up until I got to college. And I was kind of like, boom, like hit on my head, like, hello, doofus, how did you not realize in your naive little bubble that this was a real issue, and that, as a woman of color, not only are you a woman, but now you are a minority. And so, we kind of delve into the conversation of intersectionality and how that, there are so many different identities that people can take on, that when combined, it kind of just sets them further apart from what we consider what our dominant society. And so I think as a woman of color who has been talking about period poverty, I think I don't quite honestly know if my ethnicity or my race played a role in like getting people to take me seriously when talking about period poverty, or if it was more so just the topic itself. It could be both. I don't know, because like I said, everyone who I personally worked with was also a person of color in my like team. And so all of us, we really didn't have a gold standard to compare to. Like, we didn't have a counterpart who was, let's say, a different ethnicity or race when talking about period poverty. So we couldn't see the differences and like, how these interactions went, but we were able to compare just like general experiences about talking about period poverty. And so I think, it could have played a role. But to be quite honest, like, I can't really directly answer that question. But what I can say is that I think that whenever you're discussing a topic such as menstruation, that there has been such a built-up stigma around it, that it is unfortunate that we have come across just difficulty in trying to get people to understand like why this is important, why we're talking about it, and why they should care. I think a lot of the times, a lot of people that we approached when we were talking about it, they were kind of like, okay, like, why should I care? How does this affect me? And I think, when you have a topic such as menstruation that is sort of taboo for whatever reason, whether it be cultural, religious, or really just societal standards that are put against it, you're more inclined not to talk about it. And when you're more inclined not to talk about it, then there's not going to be any conversation surrounding it, which I think is why period poverty has been such a issue current, like, even here in 2021. And like, it has been it continues to be such a prevalent issue everywhere, not only like in underdeveloped countries, even here in our industrialized United States country. And so I think that people are kind of shocked at first when you're talking about period poverty, and they're really not aware, because this may be the first time they're talking about it. And so I think once you get past that shock, it becomes a little bit easier to sort of navigate these conversations. But I definitely do and have experience getting like difficult, or having difficulty in, starting that conversation and getting people to care. And I don't know if it's because of, how I look on the outside, or, where I come from, or if it's just because of the topic of the work that we're doing. And so like I said, it could be both, but I guess, we're going to keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I do think that's really admirable though, that you were able to like utilize your leadership skills in like an area, I don't want to say area, but kind of like I guess a community that was very different than what you're used to. Because I think some people like, I don't want to say sheltered, but that grow up like kind of in a specific mindset, kind of get shy in new places and don't really want to speak out. But you were able to like use it and be like, hey, like I was able to talk about this there. Why is it not a public conversation here? And I do find that a lot with like our generation. Like they're turning a lot of private conversations public, which I think is very important. Do you have a lot of hope for like the newer generation making things like more accessible to people?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, I I feel like I'm at this weird age where I don't know if I'm part of this younger generation or if like I'm kind of stuck in the middle of millennial and Gen Z. And so
We were just talking about that. We were just like, wait, is she a millennial or is she a Gen
yeah,
Z?
yeah. And so, I have that internal conflict all the time. And so do like whenever I talk about it with my friends, we're like, yeah, we don't know what we are. I think we're in the middle. We don't really know where we fall behind. But regardless, I think that I've talked about this with my best friends too. When we're like, the kids who are younger than us, not even kids. I feel like we're kids at heart still too. I think that there is so much hope when we look at the people who are doing the work now, and also the people who are like learning about this at a young age. Because I think that when I was in high school, I didn't know about this, but there's so many students now who know about this at like a much younger age than I knew. And I even found out pretty young. I would say I was like 18, 19. And so I think that was still like fairly young to find out. But I think that, like you said, a lot of things that were once private are now becoming public in, our generation, or not my generation, your generation, or the generation before me. And so I think when I look at people who are doing the work, there's so many people who are like working on period poverty and working, I can speak on California. There's an organization at UC Davis called Free the Period, and they are doing some monumental work on like in Sacramento, lobbying with school boards and lobbying with politicians and trying to get menstrual products free on UC campuses. And sorry, excuse me, they helped pass a bill to make menstrual products free in public schools in California, and now they're trying to help pass a bill to make menstrual products free in all public bathrooms in California. And so that's just one organization out of how many in California, and we have 50 states. And so I am sure that there are so many people who are like doing so much great work. And I do see a lot of hope. And like I said, I think that we've come a long way on the educational aspect, but I think that there's so much more that has to be done. And there's like just a huge road ahead for what needs to be done. But I have nothing but faith in people who are currently working on it, because I think that this topic is something that is slowly but surely becoming more widely known. Because what we usually tell people is, like, if you want to get involved with period poverty, it's as easy as educating the people around you. And like I said, my brother, my dad, my mom, and everyone, like, when I came back and started this organization, I was sort of preaching to everyone about, I was like, did you know this was an issue? Why didn't I know? And like, I think that, the more people become aware about it, then the more people are like, because it's some people like my mom, she wasn't aware about this. And once she found out, she was like, okay, like, how do I help you? And so I think there are people who are willing to help. They just need to be made aware of the issue. And there are a lot of people out there right now, and even the three of you who are, doing this podcast and doing this project, who are helping educate those around them. And that is going to go such a far way, because I think that education is one of the biggest keys to advocacy. And so I do have more than enough confidence in the people, like I said, the people who are younger than me who are working on this issue, the people who are my age and working on this issue, and the people who are a little bit older than me and working on this issue. I think that there is power in numbers, and I think that we have seen it time and time again, that this generation has such a fire in their eyes with whatever they are passionate about, and they are outspoken, and that is an incredible gift to have, because it kind of inspires everyone around them to be like, okay, look how passionate they are, we should be just as passionate. And so I think it is almost inspirational to see the different topics that have come to light in recent years. And it has been inspirational to see in our current America the things that people are standing for and the passion that they have. And so I think that, like I said, we've come a long way, but there's still a long road ahead. And I know that there's going to be a lot of key contributors to that road in the future with like the younger generation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that like if it's gonna be any generation, it's gonna be like
Absolutely.
like I think that like because we've seen it. Like we've seen the way that like people around our age, I say our age even though like older than us, but you know, high school, college.
To us anyway, like in age.
We've seen the way like, high school, college, like aged people are like you know, like very kind of, what's the word, like they advocate, activist, you know, like this started for us as like a project for school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't really know that much about this topic either. It was Talia who brought it up. And I was like, I mean, I was like shook. I was like, oh my God, like, and now it's like grown, like we've like done so much work for this project that our like teachers from our school actually wanted to like know about it and see it. They wanted us to like present it.
Amazing.
And so all these teachers at our school now are like, wow, like I had no idea. They're like they just like were so interested in it, like it was
Yeah.
so like eye-opening. They
Yeah,
would
And heartwarming to see, you know, that it just takes people to be aware about the issue to understand why it's important. And I mean, it is an incredibly important topic because, you know, people should never be set back on opportunities or job opportunities or school opportunities because of something as natural and simple as menstruation. And so I think it's incredible that you guys are starting at this level and, you know, really making a difference in your own immediate community, and that, you know, teachers are willing to learn about it. It's very heartwarming to see that that's all that it takes.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone I've told about it, like they get like a glint in their eyes and they're just so like they just want to know more because it's
Yeah,
so
because
fascinating.
yeah, it's almost intriguing when they're like, what do you mean, like, what do you mean this that's period poverty, like they're kind of shocked to hear that not everyone has accessibility towards having like hygienic menstrual products and sanitary waste products when it comes to menstruating. And so it is crazy that people are, you know, like the reactions that you get when you tell people about period
It's
poverty.
like watching like a light bulb kind of go
Yeah,
off in their
exactly.
head.
watching people get shook.
Yeah.
How has your time at UC Berkeley like impacted or influenced how you go about being a voice for period poverty?
Oh my goodness, that is a great question. I think that my time at UC Berkeley has honestly been so monumental in how I approach my like work now. Um, it has definitely shaped me for many reasons, as you know, any college experience shapes a human being. And so I think that my experience in like several other leadership organizations kind of played a role into Generation Flow. But mostly working with like working alongside other amazing individuals, I think, and being able to learn from them is kind of what shaped me, because I think that if I were on my own, I would have been a complete mess. But being able to work not only alongside like my two best friends as founders and executive directors, I think was really great, because we had such a great dynamic when, you know, as friends, and people usually say don't do business with your friends or, you know, family. But I think that we had such a great dynamic that we were able to bounce ideas off of each other just so effortlessly. And I think that, you know, when I was like stuck on something where I was like, well, I know that I want to do this, but I don't really know how to go about it. I think having that team of not only my best friends, but some amazing and talented individuals who are now going off and doing amazing things, and seeing what they had to offer was like incredibly great, because it kind of opened my mind in a way to think about this issue in ways that I had never even thought of. When I first started thinking about period poverty, I was like, okay, what can I do? And I was like, okay, I feel like I can only really donate products. Like that's all there really is to it. But then the more I talked to people and the more I worked with people, the more I realized I was like, there's so many different layers. You know, that is not all that there is to do. There's so much. There's the educational aspect. There is the, you know, money aspect. There is the political aspect, you know, talking about issues that affect our legislature. There is just the whole idea of like, okay, I can do something here locally on a college campus, but I can also help globally. You know, this is something that everyone deals with worldwide. And so there are so many different like avenues that I can go through, whether it's like educating specifically grade school girls and boys, because, you know, this sort of work starts at a young age. The more people are like, the younger they're aware of it, then the more like that is like, if you're talking about it at a young age, then essentially you're single-handedly trying to get rid of that stigma. Because if you like, I, at least when I was in grade school or when I was in elementary and middle school, I had like basic education on menstruation, or I had like very basic education as to what was expected of me, and the rest was like, okay, good luck, you're on your own to figure it out. And I remember going to my mom and being so embarrassed for whatever reason, being like, hey, like, I don't know how to put on a pad on my underwear. And so like things like that are just so simple and that you wouldn't even think are questions that like people have, that is like just one area you can do that, or you can go to food shelters in your community and ask like, hey, do you have menstrual products that you are handing out to people? Because guess what, food stamps don't cover the cost of pads and tampons. So if they can't get it through food stamps, are you providing it as a food shelter? That's one avenue. You can just focus on educating people on college campuses, or focus on making sure that there is accessibility on college campuses, et cetera. And so I think that, my time at UC Berkeley kind of showed me how to think about these issues and how to think about period poverty in a way where it's like, okay, we're going to find a solution that obviously helps and it's immediate help, and that's great. Whether that be donating products to a shelter, like that is amazing. And sometimes these shelters are an immediate need. That's cool. But also, how are we going to get at the root issue of the problem? And I think that working alongside other people who had like different backgrounds and different experiences in other different leadership groups kind of helped open my mind and kind of unlocked it to be like, okay, there's a world of possibilities that you could go about this. And here, like, you are learning from every single person has something to bring to the table, and like that there is power in numbers. And so I think that, like I said, one of the greatest things that my time at UC Berkeley, and with Generation Flow specifically, like everything that I just said was with Generation Flow specifically, was that, working with other people, I think was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, at, like, personally, as a leader and as like as a co-founder, and just as someone who cares about the issue, like at its most basic level, like as someone who found out about period poverty and was like, this is an issue that I care about. What can I do to help? I think that working with other people kind of showed me what can be done, what I like, how I should be going about it, and what I should be thinking of when like thinking of my work and how I want to move forward with this. And so, there are so many things that I could talk about how UC Berkeley shaped me and my work and what it taught me, but that would literally be a whole book or a whole like different topic. But I think that if I kind of zoom in on Generation Flow specifically, I think it was like UC Berkeley gave me the opportunity to work with people and to learn from them. And I think that is something that is so valuable in whatever area you're in. Like, it could be in high school or just in your local community center or in college. Like, when you come across people, really take advantage of what they have to offer, because everyone does have something to offer. We may think we don't, but we do. And just really like opening your mind and being able to learn from them, I think, is something that is so great, and that shapes every single person, because it kind of, like I said, changes your way of thinking and shows you like what else is out there and how you should be going about things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, it's so important to like talk to the people around you, because like they could help you, you could help them. It's just important not to keep everything to yourself.
Yeah, it's like a sounding board of ideas. And even people who weren't involved, even people who weren't involved with Generation Flow, whenever we would talk about it, they would just have an idea, and you'd be like, okay, you know what, that's a great idea, that's a great starting point, let me bounce, like, we're gonna bounce off ideas off of each other. And so
yeah. And before you know it, you have Generation Flow.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we first started this project last like February, it was like, oh, well, period poverty. Okay, well, like we'll have drives or something, we'll get people to donate products. But then because of COVID, we couldn't do that. And so we were like, okay, well, like we need to come up with something else. And that's kind of where we came up with like this podcast on our website and everything. And in a way, I think it kind of worked out like almost better, just because like, of course, getting people to donate products would have been great. And maybe we still can figure something like figure out how to do that. But the thing with doing this podcast is that we have talked to so many people already, and like we're just getting people's different like perspectives, and we're getting people who are like educating us, they educate the people around them, and then we take what we have learned and apply it to our project, where like how we mentioned, like our teachers at school are like so interested in it, like people, I mean, like I think the next step is to get like our friends and like
Mm-hmm.
family members, like just like go on social media and like talk about it and stuff, because like I feel like we've learned so much, and like sure, drives are great, and I always like think a drive will help,
Mhm.
but
It's
in
just
our
one piece.
in our like in our situation, in our under our circumstances, this is like I feel like the next best thing, you know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
it's like getting people just talking about it. Yeah, Caitlin. Sorry.
And no, it's okay. And even though we like personally can't do drives right now because of like district stuff and we're not allowed to like be in person, we have talked to people and interviewed people that are doing
Mm-hmm.
drives, and so people know, like they can go somewhere if they
Yeah.
really want to
It's so great
donate.
because I think that, like I said earlier, there's just so many different pieces to the puzzle. And so donating products is just one piece of that like huge puzzle. And so I think it's great that you have these different avenues of work and that you're interviewing different people who are speaking on this issue and working on this like field of reproductive rights and reproductive justice, and kind of giving people that opportunity to learn but also find out like different ways that they can get involved. And so I think that that's incredibly great. And I think that um, when I was at UC Berkeley, one of the things that I loved was having professionals around me who I could learn from. And so I think that in a way, this is just like another way of allowing people to learn from like people, not speaking about myself, but other guests that you've had, like allowing others to learn from people who are currently out there like trying to advocate for this issue and the populations that are affected by period poverty, and allowing allowing them to be like, hey, maybe this is something that I can do wherever I am, or hey, maybe this is something that I can help out with. And so I think it's like incredibly great.
Yeah, like we like the first people that we interviewed are like, okay, so like us, we're in the valley, and they're in like North Hills, which is like really also in the valley, you know. And so like we're just like, whoa, like there's, I mean, there's period poverty all around us, but there's also like organizations like so nearby, like so close to us,
Yeah.
that like they have drives and stuff, you know? So it's like really just knowing that like, you can get involved in your community, maybe like post COVID or something, you know? It's like
Mm-hmm.
um I don't know, it's just cool to know that like regardless of like where you are, you can like find an organization that cares about the same thing you care about.
Yeah.
You can help.
Yeah, 1000%. And I think that it's great that, for someone that's, who's in our shoes, like I said, in this COVID era where it's a little bit harder to do in-person things, it's really nice to see that there are organizations who are currently like out there doing the good work, because COVID-19 has really worsened period poverty in many ways for those who are experiencing it, or for people who were not experiencing it and now are finding themselves in situations where it's harder to get access to those menstrual products. And so I think that it's really nice to see that despite an already difficult year, there are like organizations out there who are currently like battling a global pandemic on top of period poverty. And it's also nice to see that there's still other organizations going around that are still like converting their like ways of operation or operating to kind of fit into this virtual world. And so a lot of people have sort of turned, like myself included, we've turned to more of an educational aspect of it all. And without forgetting that there is still a lot of work to be done. We keep referring people like, while we're kind of being put on pause because of COVID, there are still organizations out there who are like really like making sure that people have access to what they need during these times. And so like I said, I think there's a lot of different avenues to go about helping out with period poverty. And so it's really great to see that, like I keep really praising you guys, but it's because you really do like deserve it, because it's an amazing project. And I think it's great that you're starting out like at this level and like really making an impact in your own school community, and like hopefully a larger audience and a larger community. But education is just like one big piece of that puzzle and one big piece and one big factor of like this issue that is period poverty, and this like way of going about it is incredible. And I think that advocacy relies on education, right? I think we can all agree on that. And so I think it's important to kind of remind people that there are different avenues to help out with period poverty, and whether that be educating, donating, or directly like hands-on helping, there are different ways to get involved. And yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to come on to our podcast. It was really, I don't know, really eye-opening, and I don't know, I feel really inspired.
Yeah.
And the time out of your day. I know you're probably like super busy all the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to even talk about this.
One last thing, what like message do you want to put out there from this interview? Like what message do you have for young girls and women who might want to advocate for period poverty but they're a little hesitant? Like what would be your message to them?
Yeah, I think my message to them would be, if you're a little hesitant to help out, but you have this, inkling to help to like work on period poverty, and if your like body and mind and heart is telling you that this is something that you care about, just do it. It's that feeling in you is there for a reason. And you should listen to that feeling. And I think that usually, I know myself, like when I graduated and I moved back to Los Angeles, I was kind of like, okay, I sort of feel lost, because I feel like this is something that I'm super passionate about, and this is something that I still want to keep doing. I don't know how to go about it, because I was a little overwhelmed, because I was like, okay, well, I'm not at a university anymore, so I feel like I don't have like a Sproul Plaza to table at, or I don't have like the resources to do all these events. And I was kind of overwhelmed and I was hesitant. And I was like, well, maybe this is something that I just have to leave behind at this point. And then I kind of started talking to people and kind of started doing some more research. And I was like, no, absolutely not. This is not something that I have to leave behind, because this is something that I think is going to like, this passion is going to be with me for a really long time. And like I said earlier, working on this is something as simple as educating the people in your own household or the people near you. And so you don't have to be this like Wonder Woman to be like taking part in advocating for menstruators. You don't have to be doing it all, and you don't have to be like the lead person working on this issue. The great thing is, like, there are so many people who are working on this issue, and so joining them is something as simple as if you're scrolling on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, and you see something that revolves around like educating those around you. It's something as simple as sharing it. Like that, pops up on the newsfeed of other people who are now like, oh, I got started by seeing a Facebook video that someone shared. And so if it could be something as simple like that, as sharing something, because you don't know that the impact that it's going to have on someone else. And so I guess my message would be that you don't have to do this great elaborate thing. If you have a passion to help out with period poverty, do it. That doesn't mean that you have to go out and start an organization on your own. That could mean that, hey, if you have an extra package of pads in your own home, you can pick it up and say, hey, I'm gonna go drop this off at the food shelter. Hey, I'm gonna go drop this off at this organization or this like women's shelter. Or hey, I'm gonna post this on Instagram or Facebook for others to see. Or hey, I'm gonna like this to increase their like traction on social media, so that now it pops up on like more people's feeds. Or hey, I have the financial means to like help out, so I'm gonna donate to an organization that's already doing this. So I think that, I guess, all this word vomit to say that my message would be that to just go for it, that you don't have to be afraid of not being enough, or you don't have to be afraid of not doing enough. I think that something so simple can go a long way. And so there are different areas to get involved in period poverty, and just find out what you're passionate about and go for it. So if you're not someone who loves public speaking or talking a lot, and so you're kind of like, well, I don't want to go and do all this educational stuff because I'm kind of more of an introvert, find something that you can like, find a blog that you can write about on period poverty just to learn about it, because that's one way you could just write about it. Or you can find like if you're an artistic person, create some art and put it online that revolves around the issue. Or, you know, if you are a public speaking person, then hey, start a podcast like the three of you. Or, you know, if you are just like an activist at heart, hey, go join the organization and become a member and help out with them. I think that you just kind of have to find what you're passionate about, what your skills are, and kind of make that intertwine with how you want to go about this work. And you don't have to be like all in 100,000%, but you can kind of like put your foot in the door. And I think once you're in there, you kind of see like what's being done, and you can kind of see what area you want to go into. And so, you know, one thing that we used to tell people at Generation Flow is like, we didn't want people to have this impression that we were like, oh, solely women's health organization, so we only welcome pre-med people or pre-health. We're like, no, we want people of all backgrounds, because if you're interested in law, hey, go lobby with school boards in your area. Or hey, go help and raise awareness on like the legislature that affects menstruators. Or if you are pre-health, or if you are pre-med, then hey, go educate people on menstruation in schools, and like talk about this normal bodily function, and how, like, you know, raise awareness on how this affects like the health. Like if people don't have access to menstrual products, how does this affect their physical and mental health? Or hey, if you're like, you know, just passionate about this, find out what your skills are and do something that really matters to you. And if that's something simple, all right, awesome, you're doing the good fight. And if that something is great and like this elaborate thing, amazing, good for you, go do it. I think that that would be my message. You know, if you have a passion, it's your body's telling you that for a reason, so just listen to it and just, you know, share a post and see where that takes you.
Yeah, I love that.
Totally agree.
Well, we want to thank you again for agreeing to do this with us and for just all the work you do. I mean, you're so inspiring.
We really appreciate it. Like,
yeah.
I think that when I first contacted you was like in February, and when you like emailed me back, I was like, guys, like I was like,
oh my god, no joke. She was so excited. She was like, listen.
That is so heartwarming. I mean, I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to help out.
No, I was writing a blog post about period poverty, and I found your quote from your article, and I was like, wow, that's a good article. And then when
thank you.
she like got a response from you, I was so excited because I was like, wow, we're gonna be to her.
Low-key,
they're hyping me up too much.
You deserve the hype. I
mean, so do the three of you.
You're a little famous in like the poverty community. Yeah, no, but also you're so sweet. Like,
thank you.
Smart and
likewise to all of you.
Thank you, and we appreciate. I mean, this was like such a good conversation. Like,
happy to help out.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, you're probably gonna like go really, really far in life.
Thank you. Or the three of you. So thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm honored to even talk about something that I'm like passionate about. And so keep doing what you're doing as well. And good luck with the rest of your project. I know it's going to go great. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I love the conversation that we had today.
Thank you.
Thank you.